If you're looking for some beginner, affordable colored pencils for adult coloring books, then you are in the right place, because today I'm putting 7 different brands to the test up against the Prismacolor Premier soft core colored pencils to see if we can find some cheaper alternatives to help you get started with coloring on a small budget. Hi, I'm Sarah Renee Clark, and I love helping people like you learn to be more creative every day through coloring, drawing, and art, no matter your skill level or budget. Now, I get a lot of questions about which colored pencils are the best for beginner artists or for adult coloring books. And while I know we'd all love to splurge on a set of the Caran d'Ache Luminance pencils or the Faber-Castell Polychromos or even the more affordable Prismacolors, they aren't always in the budget. So in today's video, I have 7 other popular colored pencil brands that are each cheaper than the popular Prismacolors to see just how they compare in price, quality, color range, and how they blend together. Now, this is by no means the full list of affordable coloring pencils available. There are hundreds of affordable pencils around, but they are not all worth buying, and many are not suitable for coloring unless you're looking for a cheap gift for a 7-year-old. So with the help of Color with Claire, who has herself reviewed quite a few of these brands and more, I put together a list of some of the most popular and affordable colored pencil brands for adults. Now, these are some of the favorites from this list. They are the favorites of the coloring groups and from my friends, and are all cheaper than Prismacolor Premier. So today I'm opening many of these for the first time, so you'll be discovering them with me. I'm going to be testing how they blend, I'm going to see how well we can mix the colors together, and even how well they can keep a sharp point. By the end of this video, I hope to find some good, affordable alternatives to Prismacolors, or to at least answer some of your questions about some of these other cheaper colored pencil brands. So let's start by looking at our Prismacolor Premier soft core colored pencils to see what we are up against. So here I have my set of 150 Prismacolor pencils. Now, as you can see, these are not brand new because this is the set that I use regularly. Now, let me tell you a few things that I love about the Prismacolor pencils and why these are such a popular set. First of all, compared to other artist quality pencils, these actually are quite affordable. If you compare these to other artist level sets, they can be even 5 times more expensive than these, and yet they still produce great results. They blend beautifully together because they have such a soft, buttery core, and they're a beautiful wax-based pencil. In fact, I've just done another video comparing these to the very expensive Caran d'Ache pencils, so you can see exactly how they compare. The downside, however, to that soft core is they also break very easily, which is something else I discussed in that video. So my goal today is to see how some of these other cheap brands compare, whether we can find something else that blends as well as the Prismacolors, that still is that affordable range and hopefully even a bit cheaper, but maybe something that doesn't quite break as often. Because I know many people that use Prismacolors and even love Prismacolors definitely have a little bit of spite towards the amount that they break. For example, my poor little orange pencil here is not this short because it is a favorite color of mine compared to my other similar colors. It is this short because every time I sharpen it, it breaks. I have barely used this color, and this is unfortunately a classic story with Prismacolor. Some pencils just break and break and break. So it's not ideal, but in reality, this is what happens when we have such a really good, really great pencil at such an affordable price. You have to sacrifice on something, and in this case, it is that quality. It is that quality of the casings that leads to that high volume of breakage is the thing that we are giving up in the price with the Prismacolors. But let's check out some of our other brands and see how they compare. Before I do that though, I am going to swatch out the Prismacolors to give us a point of comparison to see just how they blend so that we can then compare the other pencils. So for each of these pencils, what I'm doing is choosing 5 colors from the set that work together as a gradient to see how they blend together. Now I'm going to be choosing different colors from each different set because the color ranges are not going to be exactly the same, but I will be choosing colors that are analogous. Now, if you don't know what analogous means, let me pop in a little link for you to check out my color theory video that talks you through some different ways to find colors that work well together, because analogous colors are some of my favorites, and as you can see from the gradients I'm making, they look really good together. As I build up these layers, the Prismacolors are blending so well together. There is a little bit of a waxy buildup. You call this wax bloom on the top. You can get rid of this very carefully at the end with the tissue if it really does bother you. Look, most of the time this doesn't really bother me, but if you're working on some professional level art, you might want to get rid of it. It'll be interesting to see if any of the cheaper brands have this same wax bloom. That will only apply if they are wax-based pencils. If any of them are oil-based pencils, we won't have that same issue. My red pencil is having a few breakage problems, which we did talk about earlier, but otherwise I really like these Prismacolors. So on this next page, I wanted to see just how much each of these pencils allow us to create layers and how well the colors mix together. So first, I'm testing out just how many layers we can do if we apply light layers. So I've done 1 layer, and then I've done 3 layers, and then I've done 6. And in the case of the Prismacolors, it let us do 6 layers, and there's actually probably room to do a few more. So that means that we should be able to mix different colors by layering those colors on top of each other, which is exactly what we want. So in this next box, I have created a miniature version of the big template you might remember from my previous video where I showed you how to take 12 colors and turn it into thousands of colors by using this chart. And so what we do is I'm layering one color on top of another color to allow the pencils to mix those pigments together to create new colors. Now, if you're familiar with your primary colors, in this case, I have used the cyan, magenta, yellow wheel to try and mix these colors together. Now, my pencils aren't probably the perfect cyan, magenta, and yellow, but they're fairly close, so we can see exactly how well the Prismacolor does at mixing these colors together to make some of our other colors in our color spectrum. So next we have the Arteza pencils. Now, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Arteza, might be Arteza, but we're sticking with Arteza. Now, these are the premium colored pencils, but I've also found out since that there are also a set of professional colored pencils, and I have been assured that the only difference is the shape. So the premium colored pencils are a triangular shape, whereas the professional colored pencils are the round shape like some of our other pencils. So that may be the only difference. If there are other differences that you know of, let me know in the comments. But let's just have a look at these. Now, this is a bit of a different packaging, so I'm probably going to convert these into one of my normal cups in a moment. But we do have a pretty good range in this set. Now, my OCD is flaring off because I immediately want to sort these in a rainbow because I can't really tell what colors they are. But I love the fact that at first glance, I can see they have a beautiful teal. So that makes me very happy. But all I can say is I can see lots of bright colors, which is awesome. I'll be very excited to actually arrange these, and I probably will shortly just because it's going to annoy me if I can't to see the full range. And then let's get swatching to have a look at how the quality performs. Okay, so even just in the first few seconds of using these pencils, I'm immediately impressed. I'll tell you what, these are wax-based pencils, but they do not feel waxy. There's barely any of the wax bloom that the Prismacolors have, and they are still very easy to work with. They are very soft and they are blending very easily, as you can see in this gradient. In the first few colors, you can barely even see the transition between colors. Now I know the colors I've picked are very close together. I'm sure that when I get to like the yellow and the green, it might be a little bit more obvious between colors, but so far I'm actually really surprised and really impressed at how good these pencils are. Not sure that I'm a fan of the triangle shape personally, so I think I would probably personally go for the other set that they offer, that they said are the same, but without the triangle shape. And I did have a bit of breakage with this orange pencil straight away, but I've sharpened it a few times now and it is working. It hasn't kept breaking over and over. So that might have just been a little bit of bad luck. I won't know, of course, until I use all the pencils if breakage is common or not with these pencils. I know with my Prismacolors, the breakage was really common, but I am really impressed with these Arteza pencils so far. I will check out how they go when it comes to actually mixing the colors. I have to say, even on the layering and the color mixing, I feel like these Artezas are actually outperforming the Prismacolors a little bit here. The layering, by the time I got to 6 layers, they have completely filled the page with pigment. Maybe I'm pressing a little bit harder without realizing, but I feel like I can get a lot more layers on before it starts to build up too much wax, which just feels nicer. It's actually a little bit easier to color with these pencils. So I think for a beginner, they're probably a little bit better, but even for someone like myself who's actually been doing a lot more coloring, I feel like they're a little bit easier to use and a little bit nicer to use. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I feel like already first go, I might have even found myself a new favorite above my Prismacolors. Wow. Now that's of course saying these after using them for about, what, 30 seconds? So it may be a very different story after doing a lot more drawing, so let's not jump to conclusions here, but this is a really, really good sign that there are other pencil brands that are affordable. If you can't stretch for the Prismacolors, there are other legitimate options out there, and Arteza is a great option if you are looking for something. I am genuinely impressed and I can't wait to see what these other brands do. So next up we have Crayola. Now these Crayolas are not new and I have talked about these previously, and I have actually put these up against the Prismacolors in a previous video. But for the sake of this test, because they are very cheap, they are the cheapest we'll be looking at today, let's see how they go. So after I've just used the Artezas, these poor Crayolas get a bit of a rough run because instantly I notice they are just not as bright. Now we have to be fair to the Crayolas because these are the cheapest pencils available that are still pretty good quality, and these are not aimed at adults. These are actually aimed at kids. Now I love Crayolas and I actually buy these for my own kids because I think they are a fantastic quality kids pencil. But if we're talking about affordable pencils for adult coloring, I do not think they can compare to some of these other pencils, especially the wax-based pencils that we're comparing in our video today that are made for adults. Now, a little bit later in this video, I'm going to be looking at the Crayola signature range, which are what they've designed for adults. So we'll see how they compare. But as you can see with the Crayola Kids range, you can tell they're a cheaper pencil, and look, the price is also cheaper. So there's nothing wrong with these pencils. You can still achieve really good gradients, really good results, but they're not as relaxing to use. They are not as enjoyable, and it definitely takes more work to get the same results. So next up we have the Castle Arts Premium Soft Touch Colored Pencils. Now at first glance I do like the packaging this comes in. It's got a nice little slip cover, but then we have this beautiful pencil case. So let's open this up and take a look at the pencils. Ooh, actually maybe I don't like this pencil case quite as much. It really stinks. Wow. Well, okay, don't do that. This actually is a very strong smell. Look, maybe this will get better over time. Is it the pencils or the case? Oh, it's a little bit the pencils too. Okay, so first thing I'd probably do is maybe let this air a bit when you first get it, because honestly, this smell reminds me of almost like Sharpie level alcohol marker smell. It's actually quite strong, a little bit off-putting, but I'm sure that will fade with time. I think it's because it's brand new. For me, that's instantly putting me off quite a lot, but that's okay. We'll work through that. We'll see how these pencils go. So we do have some beautiful colors, and I love the actual pencil case itself is quite handy. And I do appreciate that they have sorted these beautifully by colors, because that really appeals to me and instantly makes the colors look amazing. So let's swatch these and let's have a look. We've also got these little books. Let's see how they go with some blending. So these pencils are okay, they are still performing well, but they definitely don't stack up to the Prismacolors or even to the Arteza pencils. The colors aren't quite as bright. They are blending okay together, but they are definitely not the highest standard like those others, and they're a little bit scratchier to work with, just not quite as high quality. But look, overall, not a bad pencil. Now let's move on to Raffine. These are probably one of the first colored pencils I heard of, and a lot of my friends recommended these. They are quite affordable. I have the set of 72 here. Let's take a look, and instantly I love, even though the packaging is quite basic, they are sorted by colors. I don't know if you can see that. Let's open them out and have a look. So they were sorted by color in the pack, but as soon as I pulled them out, that didn't really last. But there are a lot of nice colors here. I will get out my cups so that they can sit in some nice cups. Let's do that. So these feel a little bit different to the pencils so far. I'm not really sure if these are wax-based or oil-based, because at first glance, I feel like they're oil-based. They actually feel more like an oil-based pencil. But as I'm building up, I swear there's a little bit of a wax bloom. So I'm honestly not sure. And the manufacturer doesn't actually clarify. Most people online say these are an oil-based pencil, but I found a few people who said they've reached out to the manufacturer and say that they believe they are a wax-based pencil. So look, it's a bit controversial, but they do act more like an oil-based pencil. They don't blend as well as some of the others, and the colors aren't as bright as some of our other examples so far. They definitely don't build up the layers as much, but the actual color mixing still seems to work quite well. Next we have Black Widow. Now I have these Monarch pencils. I've actually used these before. This is not a brand new set, but Black Widow have a few other sets as well. Now with their sets, it's a bit different to the others in that you don't buy a small set, a big set, a medium set in different sizes. They actually have different color sets in different ranges. So the Monarch pencils is one set, but then they have a completely different set, and they come in different color ranges. So you kind of build your collection by buying multiple sets. So I only have the Monarch pencils here. So these are actually a lot more of your pastel range, which are quite pretty, as you can see from the colors here. So these are quite nice as well. Let's have a look at how they compare to the rest. So as I'm using these, I do really like how they feel. They are a lot like the Prismacolors in a lot of ways. They are very buttery, they're very easy to work with, and I really like how vibrant these colors are. I do have to say that they do seem to have a little bit more wax in them. So I feel like it's taking me a few more layers to really get the color down and to really get rid of that white on the page, unlike the Artezas and the Prismacolors. But I think so far, these are probably coming in third place. I think they're definitely better than the Castle Arts, the Raffines, and definitely better than the Crayola. They are a very good pencil, and I do like the colors. I do like the quality. I think just that extra wax build up it's probably gonna leave a bit of that wax bloom on the top. In fact, I can already start to see that happening. But you know what? That happens with the Prismacolors too. So in terms of being a Prismacolor alternative, these are definitely a very good option. Now, when it comes to my mixing test, I have been trying to be consistent in using my yellow, my cyan, and my magenta, but obviously being a bit more of a unique set with my pastel colors, I don't actually have a yellow, cyan, and magenta. So look, for the sake of trying to be consistent, I've grabbed the closest yellow, blue, and pink that I could find. Hasn't really worked in this case, so not the best example of mixing for our Black Widows, but I just wanted to put it on here. They do still mix okay, but it's sort of hard for us to compare them to the other pencils in this example. So if you had this set, you'd be better off taking them to the bigger chart that I've got and actually testing the full set against the full color range. So next up we have the Fantasia set of premium coloring pencils, and here I have a set of 36. So there's a great range of colors here, and these are actually quite a bit lighter than some of the other pencils, so it'll be interesting to see how they compare. So at first try, these Fantasias are not as bright as what some of these other pencils have been. I'm not really sure if these oil-based or waxed-based. They kind of feel like a bit of a hard wax base, and I'm finding them a little bit harder to layer. It feels like I only get 1 or 2 layers in before I really can't build up any more color. So that is making them a little bit hard to kind of blend together and to really sort of get those layers happening. I'll be honest, I think I'd kind of rank these somewhere along with the Crayolas. I feel like if they're a decent set, they're decent for beginner artists for sure. But I do feel like if you're wanting to get something better than the Crayolas and you're wanting to spend that little bit of extra money, I'd probably splurge just a little bit more towards some of these other brands we've tried and actually skip the Fantasias and take an extra little step. And I'll be honest, when I started this, what I've been doing, which I haven't been showing you, is I've been just testing the swatches that I'm using for my gradients on just plain printer paper, just as a really quick way to work out what colors I'm gonna use. And funny enough, the colors that I chose for this one are actually brighter and more vibrant on the plain cheap printer paper than they are on the Arteza quality pencil pad, which is quite interesting because I've never seen that happen before. So if you do have the Fantasia pencils, give them a try on some different paper, because I'm actually really surprised that the printer paper pulled up quite a bright color and yet I wasn't able to get that same vibrant color on the actual proper Arteza quality paper. So that's an interesting little tip for you if you do end up with these pencils. And finally, it's time to let go of our little pack of Crayolas for our better quality Crayola signature. Now, these are the brand that Crayola has brought out to appeal to those of us who are into adult coloring. So I'm very excited to see what they have created for us. So the tin's a little bit cheap as a starting point. It kind of doesn't stay shut once it's open. Has a little bit of a bounce going on, a little bit of a creak. So quality-wise, it's maybe not as exclusive and fancy as I was hoping from the packaging, but that's okay. Thank you, Shade. Maybe it needs a little bit of oil. Or maybe we just let go of the tin and move into our pencil cups that I've been using for some of these other brands. But that's okay, we are not judging the tins, we are judging the pencils. Let's see how these Crayolas actually compare to the cheap Crayolas and to the Prismacolors. So the Crayola signature are significantly better than the cheap Crayolas. And I'll tell you what, these are actually probably one of the better options that we've tried today. I think in terms of trying to find a cheap Prismacolor alternative, these are pretty good. They are just as buttery. They have a fantastic blendability. They have that wonderful waxy, buttery feel. They have beautiful bright colors, and there's a lot of pigment. They're really, really easy to use. So these are definitely one of the better options that we've found today. And they performed really well in the color mixing test as well. These colors, you can actually see the green that has made from the yellow and blue, and you can see a bit of the red from my yellow and what's almost a magenta, a lot more than we can see from any of the other colors that we've tested from any of these other brands. So in the mixing, they've probably actually outperformed every other brand so far. So the Crayola signatures are doing quite well. So I wanted to run a few more tests just to make sure I was confident in what I think are the best alternatives for Prismacolor. So first I started off by coloring in part of a coloring page, just using each of the pencils again. And very quickly I noticed a few things. First of all, the Crayola signatures started breaking a lot. So these with the first test were actually one of my favorites. I thought that they blended great. I thought they were really easy to use, and they reminded me a lot of the Prismacolors. Turns out they have something else in common with the Prismacolors, and that is breakage. So the casings on them are quite cheap and prone to breakage, and as soon as I started sharpening them, I found myself very frustrated. They broke a lot, and the casings are very cheap, but they are nice to draw with. The Artezas were nice all around. They are not as soft as the Prismacolors, but they didn't break. And you know what? Some people actually don't like how soft the Prismacolors are. So if you're someone who's looking for a slightly harder lead or that would like to keep a sharper point, you might actually find that the Artezas are better than the Prismacolors in some cases. Now that is definitely a preference. Some people might prefer one over the other, and that's something I might look at doing a future video, actually looking closer at Prismacolor versus Arteza so you can make a better decision for yourself. But either way, Arteza is definitely still in the running. Now, Black Widow, definitely a great pencil as well. Very soft, buttery, a little bit crumbly, but that's also common with most of these wax pencils. Now, the Black Widows are great for backgrounds, but I did find that they were a little bit hard to keep a sharp point because they are so soft. So you might want to use these as maybe a secondary set, but if you're looking to buy one set, these may not be the go-to one. You might want to back them up with another set that has a sharper point, like the Artezas, or maybe like an oil-based pencil, even if it's a cheap set like a Crayola's that you can use for the fine details that the Black Widows might struggle with. The Fantasias, look, they hold a sharp point, so that's kind of like what I was saying, but I don't know, I'm still pretty underwhelmed with these at this point, so we'll come back to them. The Micro Raffines, look, these aren't the best out of these, but these are a very, very good value pencil, so we'll come back to them as well because these are very, very cheap, and so they actually are quite impressive for the price. So as much as they are definitely not as good as some of these other options, I'm still quite impressed. And finally, the Castle Arts. These are nice, and these are probably one of my favorites out of the ones we've looked at today. They are a little bit crumbly, and look, they are a little bit harder to blend, but overall, they are not bad. And I wanted to do one final test looking at how each of these pencils performed on black paper. Now, as you can see with this black paper test, the Prismacolor really does stand out. The Prismacolor is so much more vibrant, and it was way easier to blend and really get the bold colors than any of the other pencils. In saying that, the rest actually worked quite well on the black paper. Even the cheap Crayolas actually do show up on black paper, and the rest were actually pretty even. There were no others that stood out as massive winners or massive losers. So that's a great sign that if you're wanting to do stuff on black paper or colored paper, they're all pretty even, but it was worth checking out just for this test. One thing I did notice is that some of these pencils, as you can see, are quite crumbly. What this means is that you need to have either a tissue or, like I have, just an old makeup brush that you can use to wipe off the crumbs, because if you use your finger, you might find that you end up smudging some of your work as you accidentally pick up those crumbs and rub it on your work. So I like to use just an old makeup brush to quickly brush them off so that you don't end up wrecking the rest of your drawing. So that's a lot to take in, I know. And look, I'll put this all in a blog post that you can access in the description or at the eye at the top of the screen to find out all of this in a really easy to read summary. And I'll pop in that as well, the links if you do want to buy any of these pencils. I'll pop the links in to make it really, really easy for you. So if you are looking for a set for someone as a gift, or if you're looking to buy that first set for yourself, you can head there to that blog post and it's all there. But the question stands, which of these pencils are as good as Prismacolors, if any, and which are the best value for money? So the first question, I have a few questions I guess to answer. And the first one is, are any of these actually as good as Prismacolors? Now you might have already guessed from what I've said so far, but I think in my opinion, the Artezas, which is what I have here, I would say, while they are different to the Prismacolors, so different people will have different opinions on this because not everybody loves the super soft core. Some people prefer a little bit harder, some a bit softer. So it does come down to preference. So remember, just because I think this, you may not agree, but that's okay. I think the Artezas are a definite competitor for the Prismacolors. I think if you are looking for a beginner coloring pencil or even for an advanced coloring pencil that's a decent budget and the Prismacolors are out of reach, I think the Artezas are probably my top choice from all of the pencils that I have tried today. Coming up close to that, I would have said the Crayola signatures performed much like the Prismacolors until I realized how easily they broke. For me, that probably is a deal breaker because I know that when pencils break a lot, that can be very, very frustrating. So given the price, which I'll talk about shortly, I feel like that probably puts them out of the range for me, but we'll come to that. Quality-wise, in terms of how they perform, they did perform quite well. The Black Widow pencil and the Castle Arts are then probably my runners-up. They did perform really well and they are a good Prismacolor competitor. I do feel like they are definitely not quite at that standard, but if you are beginning and you are looking for that first step in and you're looking for just a good quality wax pencil, I think they are definitely a great starting point. Now let's take a look at which pencils are the most affordable and which are the best value for money. Now, I'm just looking at US dollars and we're going to look at the prices on Amazon.com because that is where all of these pencils are available. So obviously if you're in a different country or if you're looking on other websites or in other shops, these may vary and there may be some brands that actually work out more expensive than others. But just for the sake of keeping things simple, I thought Amazon.com was an easy place to start. So the cheapest out of all of these is definitely the Crayola, not the Crayola Signature, just the basic set of Crayola. Now they didn't rank well on the quality, but that's because they're not aimed at adults, they're aimed at kids. And you can get a set of 100 for under $15. So if you're looking for just a way to start, and in fact I have a video on how to get the most out of cheap pencils, the set of Crayola is a starting point. But look, I do recommend stretching a budget just a little bit to get something a bit nicer. But if you are wanting to keep that budget low, the marker Raffine are not that much extra. You can get a set of 48 for under $20, which works out at about 30 to 35 cents each. That is under less than maybe half price, maybe not quite that cheap compared to any of these other brands. So the marker Raffine, if you remember, didn't really perform as well as any of the other brands on the actual test, but they are not a bad pencil. And they actually still blended really, really well. So when it comes to value, I actually would still recommend these pencils. While they are not my favorites, and I probably won't be using them, to be completely honest with you, that's because I have these other options. So if you can stretch your budget a bit further, leave them on the shelf, go for something else. But if you can't stretch your budget and you're looking for something budget friendly, I do think the marker Raffine will not let you down. I think they are a great pencil, and for under $20, I think that that's a really good buy. That's really good value. And I know plenty of people that have been very happy with their set. If you can stretch your budget a little bit further, the Arteza, Black Widow, and Castle Art all cost 40 to 70 cents per pencil. That means that their sets, depending on whether you get a small set or a big set, all range between 20 to 80 US dollars for a set. Now, that's a pretty good gift size budget, so maybe it's something you can throw in as an idea for a Christmas or birthday gift for someone, but I think that's a really, really good range for a starter set. And from those, if you're going for that, I would probably aim for the Artezas personally, but the Arteza, Black Widow, and Castle Art were all those ones that I think actually ranked pretty well with the Prismacolors. Now the Crayola Signature and the Fantasia pencils actually end up costing pretty much the same as the Prismacolors on Amazon.com. Now remembering if you're somewhere else, that could be totally different, but they're about 70 cents to $1 per pencil. So look, as much as the Crayola Signature definitely had their pros and they had a lot of positives, they did also have the negatives, like I said. So to be honest, I feel like given the price, that was a deal breaker for me and I probably wouldn't buy them. So when it comes to that value versus the quality, I feel like the Crayolas are kind of out of the picture for me. I feel like I would either spend that same amount of money on a set of Prismacolors or save a few dollars and get one of those other sets like the Artezas, the Black Widows, or the Castle Arts that are all that slightly lower budget, but still that really good quality. And finally, I want to quickly just talk about the color range. Now the Prismacolor is a big set. I've got the 150 set here, but if you've heard me talk previously in other videos, I don't think everyone actually needs 150 set. I think 40 or 50 or even 70 is more than enough pencils, especially if you're a beginner. In fact, if you look at my set here, there are plenty of full-size pencils that have actually never been used. So 150 is not really necessary, but if you are wanting that big set, I mean, if you're giving this as a gift for someone, sometimes a big set's just nice. It's really nice to look like you have this huge range of pencils. Or if you're an artist and a collector, it's just nice to feel like you have the biggest set available. So Castle Arts, Arteza, Crayola, and Black Widow all have over 100 colors available in their sets. So they are big sets like this. If you are wanting something a bit smaller, or if you don't really care, they all offer a smaller option as well. Otherwise, the Crayola Signature, Fantasia, and Raffine, they all still have around that 50. Some of them only have 50, some of them have more like 70, but they all have at least 48 to 50 as their biggest set. So you will have enough colors no matter which you pick. I really don't think the color range for any of these is so small that that should be eliminated. I don't think that that should be a deciding factor. But if you do want to know exactly what sets are available, I'll include that in the blog post. So in summary, when it comes to all of this, I think if you are trying to save money, but you want the Prismacolor type of pencil, if you're wanting that real wax-based pencil with that Prismacolor feel that everybody raves about, but you want something cheaper, the Artezas are your go-to pencil. And in a future video, I will compare them side by side to see if the Artezas and the Prismacolors, how different they actually are, and see what the differences are, whether they might actually be even a little bit better possibly, because I've heard some people that think that's the case. So we'll see, we'll put them to the test. But I have more videos coming with more pencils because sadly, this is not all the pencils that I bought. This is just the ones that I think were comparable to the Prismacolor at a cheaper price. So I have more videos coming comparing more brands to find out which are the best. This video was aimed at which are the most affordable. So if you would like to check out my future videos and if you have any specific questions or things you would like me to try out, pop them in the comments, like this video and press subscribe so that you can check out when those new videos come out. I have so much planned for this coming year in videos and tutorials and showing you new reviews, new ways to draw, new ways to get creative and all that kind of stuff. So I really hope you'll join me. I really hope that you found this video helpful. And if you are looking, like I said, for a cheaper, affordable option, the Raffines are another good one that I think is a good, affordable option in here. But honestly, all of these pencils, I was really impressed. I think really just happy with all of these. Although I do think that I'm gonna have to give some of these away at some point because I don't think I need this many pencils, but we'll deal with that. I hope you found this helpful. Please subscribe and check out this other video that I have for you because this one will be fun too. See ya.